Today I want to show you guys how I branched out from my brush and branched out into a sprayer. Hey everyone, Joni here with Flipping Lemons. You can find us on social media, specifically Instagram is where all of our DIY highlights is saved, all my project pieces. But I am branching out to YouTube again. I'm trying to get back into the YouTube editing. It's just hard with two little ones and a store. But you can find me on Instagram. You can find me on Facebook, of course, for our store page. On this custom order, I had a lady wanting 6 chairs and a table done. You guys probably know me for brushes. I love using the brushes. Sprayers have always intimidated me, and I don't know why after doing them, but I've always leaned more towards brushing. I really like the spraying, especially the time it took, and then of course the cost it took for my customer. So minimizing that cost, minimizing the time was really the goal for me. I plan on doing it again. I have another custom order, a bedroom set coming up that I'm planning on using. I did start on a cradle of my daughter's that had lots of spindles. I've kind of put off from painting it just because of the spindles. If you guys know how long it takes to paint spindles like on a chair, that is why I reached for the sprayer this time. She had 6 chairs. My customer had 6 chairs that she wanted refinished. They were black. She wanted to make them white. And anyone that knows that's refinished a chair knows how frustrating white can be on a dark surface, how many coats it takes and how much time it takes to do a chair. I'll let you know my feedback on it and how it went. I plan to again do it in the future. So yeah, if you're scared of using a sprayer for your furniture, don't be. It just takes practice. Like I said, I practice on my daughter's cradle. You gotta watch YouTube and learn from others and learn from their mistakes like you're about to learn from mine, because I did have lots of mistakes on this one, and it was a learning curve, I needed to learn for my sake and for my customers that buy my paint, who are always curious about spraying. It's not as intimidating as it really seems. It's more learning your consistency, learning the dials on your sprayer, and just getting more comfortable with how to spray and how consistently to spray. So anyways, enough of me talking. Here's kind of what I did. I'll try to walk through each step and guide you the best I can. So this is the sprayer I used. It says OptiStain on it, sprayer. I did use the paint. I did use chalk paint. It still worked great. You might branch out and make sure that you have the correct kind of sprayer too. This is what I had on hand. This is what my husband had bought for a job, and I was like, I'm gonna try it and see. And yeah, I've not had any trouble with it. I know there's other types of sprayers, like DIY sprayers out there that you can use that's, you know, just as good or better, depending on the money you want to spend for it.
Before you do any spraying, you really want to make sure your pieces are clean. These chairs were really gross. I took the seats off and there was gunk stuck behind the seats, so I decided to spray them separately. I'm using Annie Sloan chalk paint. It adheres really well to almost any surface with very little prep work. So I don't really need to strip or sand the existing finish down with her paint. That's one of the features I love most about it, and it saves me so much time. After you're done cleaning and getting your area set up for spraying, I just used a plastic drop cloth, and I'll show you in a little bit whenever I start practicing on the cradle. You can start watering down your paint. Some say about 1/3 or 30% ratio with Annie's chalk paint, but I add a little bit of water at a time, and I keep stirring in between because the thicker part of the paint tends to settle towards the bottom. I used Wagner's timing scoop also. I really liked it. It was a little more accurate. I got it down to around 45 seconds is where I really liked the consistency of the paint. So another great tip I learned from Annie's tutorial on her website is if your paint is leaving a worm behind on the surface when you're lifting up your mixing stick and kind of letting it drip off, if it's leaving a worm behind, it's still a little bit too thick. Really, I should have been pouring the paint into the paint cup of the sprayer and mixing in the paint cup. But I adjusted as I went. Like I said, you kind of learn as you go. So whenever you put your top sprayer nozzle on, you want to make sure that that tube is pointing either upwards or downwards for the direction that you're painting. So here I'm painting downwards, so I wanted the suction tube to be towards the front, pointing towards the front. So as the paint got a little bit lower over time, the suction tube would pull from the front because I was tilted more towards the front. So here's the cradle. You can see my plastic setup. Really, the overspray still went off on the side. So I would say do more than you think you actually need, which I will next time. I actually bought the Wagner pop-up tent, and I'm kind of excited to try it. But here's my first go at the spraying. It was a great practice on learning like the direction, which way to turn the nozzle on the tip. So if you're going horizontal like I'm going here, you want the tip horizontal. If you're going vertical, you will turn the tip vertical, which you can see here I'm turning the sprayer, which is habit for when you actually use spray paint. So this was the first chair I did, and I learned after a while to stop what I was doing, turn the nozzle if I was going from a horizontal to a vertical. But I also learned it was easier just to do all the horizontal pieces at a time and then go to the vertical, so you're not having to adjust the nozzle every time. But it was pretty easy. The first coat kind of made me nervous because it seemed a little bit more runny, but I adjusted the paint consistency on the second coat and it did great. So here's the first coat. You guys can kind of see it's splotchy in some areas. I wasn't too worried about it because I knew I was going to distress. So after my second coat was all good and dry, I went in and I flipped the chairs over to get those hidden areas that you sometimes see, sometimes you don't see on the bottoms of chairs. I just did one quick good coat. In between the coats, I let them dry at least 2 hours. Some I left overnight, just depending on if I had enough time to spray, if the kids would let me spray. So here's my setup for the seats. I used a plastic Lazy Susan, which I found at a garage sale. I thought was perfect for turning the seats and not getting my fingers touching where I had just sprayed whenever I needed to spray the sides of the chairs. The time it took me to spray the chairs started out around 25 to 30 minutes, and I got it down to around 18 minutes each coat. It saved me hours of painting. If I had used a brush, I would have been there probably 45 minutes each chair, each coat. So that time adds up, that money adds up, and it really helped me get the cost down for my customer. Cleaning the sprayer was pretty easy and quick. It took around 10 minutes. So I set the excess paint and the sprayer paint cup into the paint can, and I just let it sit there for a while I cleaned the other parts of the sprayer. And it drained out within 10 minutes. It was ready to clean once I got everything else cleaned. I made sure to clean that little O-ring too inside the sprayer. I suggest having some tiny brushes on hand when you go to clean. Just all of the parts, the little parts that the big scrubby brushes can't reach. Take it from me, it is really inconvenient whenever you're trying to run around finding brushes that will clean those little tiny parts. So you might have to buy a set of brushes and keep it in the box with the sprayer whenever you go to use it. That way you don't forget when it's time to clean up. As far as if I would spray again, yes, I would, especially on those tedious projects that seem to become frustrating or stretch out longer than you ever expect. Chairs, large bedroom sets, if you're doing a bunch of large pieces at one time, I would definitely reach for the sprayer compared to the brush. But I also did not like the inconvenience of I had to wear a mask so my kids could not be around me when I sprayed, which my kids are around me all the time, especially whenever I'm working outside. So they either had to be in bed or they had to be with one of my in-laws, with my mom, or someone while I worked on these pieces. I did distress with some sandpaper, and then I used clear chalk paint wax to seal everything. I just love the satin finish that the wax gives and how forgiving it is. Usually if you have a glossier finish or a lacquer type finish, it will show all the flaws, and waxing just doesn't do that. So it's very soft, it's very forgiving, and it's pretty easy to apply. It took me about 18 to 20 minutes each chair to apply the wax. So it didn't take a lot of time compared to if I was painting. If you want to use lacquer, you can actually spray on lacquer. I've never done it. There's videos on Annie Sloan's website as far as a tutorial, but I just tend to reach more towards the wax. So I also did the table in a faux wood finish. I have that saved in our highlights on Instagram, and I'll be sure to link that below. But if you want to check out how I did that, yeah, follow our stories on that. It's pretty fun. It's different and unique. And since I couldn't strip the top down, I did a faux wood finish, and I think it turned out great. Let me know your comments and thoughts. If you have any tips on spraying, I am all ears. And if you like this video, give it a thumbs up and be sure to subscribe to our channel. Thank you guys so much for watching.